Hello and welcome to Living Social CYC TV viewers. My name is Father Antonius. I'd like to introduce our topic today with a true story. When I was a university student, I was talking with a fellow student and I asked her what her topic for her assignment was. And she said to me, "Oh, I'm doing a topic about euthanasia." And I thought, oh, that's very interesting, because she actually was, I think, from China. And I thought that would be a very interesting topic about how young people grow up in China and so on. And very quickly she pointed out my stupidity, because she said, no, I'm not talking about young people in the continent of Asia. I'm talking about euthanasia, spelt E-U-T-H. Of course, euthanasia is the practice of a person who is terminally ill, someone who's very, very sick and is going to die. Usually that's the case. And they decide that rather than waiting for nature to take its course, they would like to end their life themselves. They would like to take their own life. And of course, related to that is the idea of other people helping the patient to end their own life, because often by that stage they're quite sick and they may not actually be able to get up out of the chair. So should a doctor help a patient who has decided they want to die? Should he provide the drugs to do it, for example? Should the doctor actually inject the drugs? Or is that a crime? Is that maybe not even, well, it is a crime in most countries, but is it morally acceptable? And we find that people who argue that euthanasia is a good thing and people who argue against euthanasia are both using moral arguments. They're talking about what is good and what is evil, what is right and what is wrong. The difference is, of course, that they define the good and the right in different ways. So those who argue in favour of euthanasia, they will generally say something like this: "This is my life and I have the right to do with it what I want. Suffering is a great evil in life, and anything we can do to reduce suffering would be a good thing. So if I'm very sick and I'm suffering, and I take my own life, I have reduced my suffering. What is the point of living for another 6 months if those 6 months are going to just be filled with pain and I'm not going to be able to look after myself, and I'm going to lose my dignity, I'm going to have dribble coming out of my mouth, I won't be able to control going to the toilet. I don't want to live like that, so let me take my own life and go out with dignity." Now, as Christians, of course, we believe in the dignity of the human being, and we believe in easing suffering, because suffering and evil are things that are part of the brokenness of this world. It's not the way that's not the way that God wanted this world to be. And of course, anything that we can do to heal that, we ought to do. But now the question becomes, are we paying too high a cost to preserve that person's dignity and ease their suffering if we take their life? Because now we're crossing a particular line that is a very important one. We are choosing the time of our own death. And this is something that in all other aspects of life we don't do. Very few people die when they want to die. Occasionally it will happen that a person will have lived a good and full life and they will feel, I'm happy to die anytime God wants to take me. But even then, I've met many people who are in that situation and God doesn't take them for another 20 years. The Christian says, we did not create our own life. We did not start our own lives. And therefore, we should not end our own lives. The power of life and death is too dangerous a power for a human being to hold. It is only safe for that power to be in the hands of the all-wise and all-loving God. This is a particularly powerful argument when we're thinking about other people helping people to take their own lives. And there are many dangers in us allowing this to happen as a society. Once you open that door for doctors to help people take their own lives, a whole raft of moral and ethical issues arise. How do we know that the patient really wants this? How do we know that the patient isn't just depressed as a consequence of their disease? How do we know that their brain is functioning properly and they are really making a free choice about this? How do we know that even if the patient made this choice when they were still very healthy, now that they are very sick and maybe not mentally capable of making such a choice, how do we know they wouldn't have changed their minds if they had the capability to think about it again? All of these issues introduce so many doubts into the situation that it is, I believe, and I think most Christians would agree, much safer that we do not give any human being this power over life and death. But then you may say, what about the person themselves? Can't they choose to end their own life with nobody else helping them? But here also we would ask, is this what human life is meant to be like? Are we now looking at human life as something that is so horrible that we just want to escape it? That is not the Christian point of view. That is not the view of the goodness of God and the goodness of life that He created in His own image. But then you'll say, but disease and suffering are horrible, Abuna. They're terrible. We should decrease them. Yes, we should do all that we can to decrease them. And thankfully, in the 21st century in Western society, no terminal cancer patient should be in pain. This is one of the mottos of palliative care specialists today. No patient should be in pain. We have incredibly powerful medications and cocktails of medications, mixtures of different drugs, plus all sorts of other therapeutic approaches like physiotherapy and occupational therapy, all these other different kinds of things, radiation therapy and chemotherapy. We have no excuse today to leave a patient with cancer in pain. Now that may mean that the patient may be drowsy, it may mean that they are not able to get up and run around or anything like that, that's true. And maybe, yes, the quality of their life will decrease. But that's not how we measure quality of life as Christians. A person who is disabled, a person who is born disabled, has a lower quality of life than a healthy person in many ways, particularly if those disabilities are more severe. Nobody says we should kill the disabled because their quality of life is very poor. What we do say is we should do everything in our power to improve their quality of life. And I think the same principle goes here, that the terminal patient, we ought to do everything we can to improve their quality of life. Remembering that quality of life is not just about our physical state, but it's also about our relationships. It's about our thoughts. It's about what we make of our experiences. A lot of very important reflection and contemplation on one's life happens while the person is going through the terminal stages of a cancer. Some of you might remember the Blessed Father Bishoy Kamel in the 20th century, who loved this disease of cancer, not because it kills people. He called it the disease of the paradise, because he saw so many cancer patients coming to themselves, thinking about what really matters in life, what is important in life when their life is coming to an end. And that's a really important experience for us as human beings to go through. To take that away from people, or even to deprive ourselves of it, in a way makes us less of a human being. And it certainly makes it harder for us to approach the goodness and the truth and the love of God, and to be prepared for that. So for all of these reasons, the Church disagrees with the idea of euthanasia, with one exception, and that is passive euthanasia. And that is to say, active euthanasia is where we do something to actually kill the person. They weren't going to die, we do something, and our intervention is what makes them die. But passive euthanasia is where someone is naturally dying and you realize that nothing you can do is going to save their life, so you leave them to die naturally. You don't do heroic things like jump on their chest and try and get their heart started and so on. That is acceptable, because that is not us making the decision of that person dying. That is God letting nature take its course and that person die. But active euthanasia, for all of those reasons we've said, we definitely feel is a bad thing. Thank you for listening today. May God bless you all, and I'll see you next time.